being recorded. I will now introduce our board of directors. We have Jonathan Henderson, Tasha Woods, Madeline DeMatenon, soon to be Cynthia Coe. We are joined by our superintendent, Ginger Haberer, also Josephine Shepner and Reagan Messner, our two student reps. All right, and then Ginger, you are up.
Well, board, we are super excited tonight to welcome Cynthia Coe as our new board member. So I'm going to go up to the podium and I'll ask you to come up and join me and we will go through the oath together. Yep, that's on. So Cynthia, I'll just ask you to repeat after me and we will swear you in. I, Cynthia Coe,
I, Cynthia Coe,
do affirm that I am a citizen of the United States of America
do affirm that I am a citizen of the United States of America
and of the state of Washington,
and of the state of Washington,
that I will support the Constitution
that I will support the Constitution
and laws of the United States
and laws of the United States
and the Constitution and laws of the state of Washington,
and the Constitution and laws of the state of Washington,
and will do the best of my judgment,
and will, to the best of my judgment,
skill, and ability,
skill, and ability,
truly, faithfully, and diligently,
truly, faithfully, and diligently,
and impartially perform the duties of Ellensburg School District Board Member
the duties of Ellensburg School District Board Member
in and for Kittitas County, Washington,
in and for Kittitas County, Washington,
as such duties are prescribed by law.
as such duties are prescribed by law.
All right, thank you. We are so excited to have you as our official board member. Since we'll be rolling into the superintendent update anyway, I want to acknowledge, and this is for Director Tasha Woods. She is going on 5 years as a board member, and that is huge. So Tasha, if you'll come up and be recognized for that, that is a huge commitment. And we just appreciate you and your leadership.
Board, first action up is our consent agenda. We had the opportunity to review these items individually and seek clarification from the district admin prior to tonight's meeting. I will entertain a motion.
I move that we approve the consent agenda.
I second.
Madeline has moved that we accept the consent agenda. Jonathan has second. I will call a vote. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? That has passed. And then I'd also just like to send a special thank you out to Susan Hammond. She is retiring at the end of the school year after more than 37 years in education. For the past 28 years, she has been a school counselor at Morgan Middle School. So Susan, thank you for your service and all the help that you gave the Ellensburg students and families. That takes us to administration. Ginger, take it away.
So board, we have a very special treat here tonight. We have the cybersecurity team from Ellensburg High School and Director Tiffany Price with her whole team. They won first in the state, and that is a very difficult competition. So I'm super excited that she has her team here and would love for you guys to come up and talk about the competition, what were some of the challenges, and we're just really proud of you.
They get to present. I just get to take pictures. You want to step up to the mic? Yeah.
Would you like to, Captain?
All right, so we are the Cyber Patriot team from Ellensburg. We have representatives from two teams. I am Andrew Stinson. I was the Cyber Patriot captain of all the teams, as well as of Minion Nation.
I am Hannah Punichov, and I am a part of Team Minion Nation.
My name is Bentley Bowen, and I'm the captain of Team Computatrum Carreri.
Hi, my name is Peter Hansen, and I am on the same team as Bentley.
So what Cyber Patriot is, it is run by the Air Force. It is a cybersecurity organization. This year there was about 6,000 teams, both middle school and high school, competing. And what we do is we compete over the months of October to January, at least 4 competitions. They give you a virtual computer and you have to secure it. So that's what it is. We have Hannah here to talk about the benefits and just the fun that we had.
So Cyber Patriot allows students to gain industry knowledge on cybersecurity and other STEM-based fields. And students who participate in Cyber Patriot are more likely to pursue those STEM-based fields, which is very important in such a new technological world that we're building. And we have a lot of fun in Cyber Patriot competitions. It lasts for like 6 hours each competition. And so there's a lot of time where you can kind of hang out and get to know our team members. So there's a lot of team building along with Cyber Patriot. Thank you.
So this year, I'm really proud of all the kids. We had a really good group. They showed up and they practiced. We had 3 teams. The Coding Frogs are the team that's not here, but here to talk about their experience getting first place in the gold division for state are Peter and Bentley.
Yeah, so in the gold bracket, we were able to get first place for
Gold tier.
yeah, gold tier. And we were able to participate nationally in the semifinals competition, which it was difficult, but it was good experience to learn how to work computers and secure them.
Yeah, and we used multiple different programs to learn. We had Unity, Unity, Packet Tracer, Windows, and Linux. There we go. Anyway, so for the Packet Tracer, which was my main job, is basically you are putting together a network and fixing all of its issues. And I use an online course that puts me through it, while Peter mainly does
Windows and some of the other operating systems, just trying to make sure that backdoors get closed and stuff like that. Anything else to add?
So yeah, just congratulations to all of our teams. This is the best we've done by far in our 5 years or 4 years, I think, of competing. Minion Nation got 5th in platinum, which was the highest division. Like we said, they got 1st in gold division, and then Coding Frogs, our other team, got 13th, I believe, in gold division. I think that's it. Any questions?
I probably don't have as tech savvy of a question as Tasha's coming up with right now, but my question would be, what grade are you guys in? Have you been doing this for a year, 2, 3 years kind of a thing? So you're building off of each year learning. And then the second question would be, when you go to these competitions, like how many teams are you guys competing against? And what are some of the scoring guidelines that you go off of?
So for how old we are, I think you guys are sophomore.
Yeah, this is my second year in his first year.
So yeah, it's
In Cyber Patriots.
some of their first years in Cyber Patriot, which that was the best we've had for a young group. Our group are pretty much all seniors and we've been doing this for 4 years. And so it's something a lot of the kids go through all 4 years. And then the competition we actually get to do out of just the computer labs at the high school because it's all online. So we're facing like you said, the 6,000 teams across the nation we're technically scoring against. In Washington, I think there was like 200 in our division. And you get points just based off of the different things that you are able to fix in the computer.
No, my technical question is not a technical question. Was that I had an opportunity to come in there on I don't think it was a Saturday or a Sunday, when you're putting your time in on a Saturday or a Sunday, which was incredible. And you were there for about 6 hours, and it was very confusing when I walked in the room because there was a gigantic scoreboard at the front with like this scrolling mass of 6,000 teams that you were competing against. And it was as though these students were all sitting there like trying to solve what my technical question was, a movie that I have seen in the past. Like you were hacking things, I believed. And so you were solving things. It was unbelievable because you were talking to each other and collaborating and helping each other. And one person was sort of, I don't know, I'm confused. And someone came and helped them crack that code. There's my technical thing. It was really neat. Can you speak to a little bit about what you do in your class that kind of got you interested in Cyber Patriot, and what do you think you want to do with it now?
Well, personally, I just joined both our coding club and the cybersecurity club right away once I got into high school, and it was really fun my first year. Like you said, just working with other kids and figuring things out. And really building upon that. So that was my personal experience using it going on. I want to become more of a programmer, not too much cybersecurity. I know we do have one student in particular that's really looking towards the cybersecurity field, and she's really liked it. Any of you guys like to talk?
My experience is Cyber Patriot. Yes. So Cyber Patriot was a little bit more intimidating compared to our coding club. So walking in there, I kind of like was a little bit more nervous than, our normal Like Bytes coding club. So I kind of had a lot of my friends and my team members help me kind of integrate into such an interesting and like really technical and difficult world. It was really fun, and I am still hoping to pursue STEM, maybe more on the programming side, like Andrew Stinson said. So, yeah.
For me, from my very first year as a freshman, I quite enjoyed in my coding class. And then my teacher was like, oh, hey, there's these whole bunch of other clubs you can join. So I joined the clubs. And then she was like, oh, hey, you can do cybersecurity. And I was like, oh, that sounds great. So I joined.
Yeah, my experience being a sophomore, I skipped out on doing Cyber Patriot my first year because I just was trying to figure out how to do high school, really. Then my second year, I realized how cool the idea was and signed right up basically my second year. And it's been a pretty good time.
I have one more question, and it's not very specific. Well, I mean, not very technical. I'm looking at the PowerPoint presentation that was sent to us, and I can't even say that team name. So I'm curious how you came up with that team name.
No, that was me. That was weird. So basically last year, when I was a freshman, whenever I built team names for anything, I just kind of put them into a translator, random things until it sounded cool. And that's how that team name came up. And it basically just means computer boys in Latin.
Perfect. Thank you. Board, do you have any more questions?
So we would like for you to do the walk of fame. So in a minute, we're going to ask you to come up here and shake our hands because that's just a huge celebration. And we're just so proud of you guys and all the time that you've put into it. And we already feel more secure knowing that when you graduate, you'll be out there programming and doing good things for our global society. So thank you. Come on up, though. We want to be able to congratulate you. Congratulations. Yeah. Congratulations. Congratulations. Congratulations.
Well, congratulations again, Cyber Patriot teams. And Ginger, you still have
Yes.
something else?
I do. So board, you saw this, I sent it out, but just wanted to kind of highlight again what was in your schools, because we just had so many great celebrations and of course, a huge celebration. We have Cynthia on board with us and just are super excited about having you on our board. We also were able to highlight the big picture program and the changes there. We started this conversation last spring and then Rhonda was able to come on board and just super excited about the work and just becoming more project-based and also linking together with more mentors in the community. And I've been talking to, we belong to the Chamber of Commerce. Once a month, I meet with city leaders at a lunch, and I was already started talking to them about mentorships and how we want to keep expanding that, as well as with some of our city leaders and some of our business folks. So I'm excited. I think that this will give us another opportunity to just keep expanding our partnerships within the community. And then certainly Ellensburg Home Connection, as you know, Rhonda presented that and she sent me a list today. There's a lot of detailed work that needs to be done. So we'll be starting on that. And there's going to be some more programming types of aspects that will probably come to the board with that we'll need to have approved, like programming, the actual programming and things like that. But we're super excited about that. And we already have families that are that have contacted her and really want to become a part of the Home Connection program for next year. And then, of course, what's cuter than kindergarten, TK. I had a chance to be in the TK program at IDA earlier this week, and it is busy. There's a lot of energy and it's super busy. And but really exciting to see. It's a full day program and it is funded by the state for every student. And they're just learning some great, it's giving our students that are in this program a really good foundation. And so we hope to expand that program. And then, as you know, Alexandra got the grant, Chef Ann grant. And I'm excited I get to go with her to eat lunch with the kids next week. And she's going to show me more about their salad bar and maybe take me behind the scenes to see what they're thinking as far as increasing scratch cooking. And then again, a huge shout out to Jason Ing and Jeff Hashimoto and them taking advantage of the snow, which is now gone. I saw Jason yesterday. He's like, and the snow is gone. But it was such a great opportunity to get the kids out there and on their cross-country skis. And so just so thankful that they jump right in there and staff and students out there trying the cross-country. And we know that Jeff has an amazing program here that he started around cross-country skiing. And we're just really fortunate to have such talented teachers and leaders in our community that take advantage of our outdoors. And our own Kevin Dwight, who's also here with us today, the Building a Better Mousetrap car, had a chance to see his applied science class and I wasn't aware that Kevin had an engineering background, and just was really fun to see him asking questions, good critical thinking questions, and giving students a lot of options and how they wanted to build their mousetrap car. And well, why do you think you want to use this material instead of this material? And really making them think through it. And So, and had a chance to see him test it. And so that was a great experience, and hope that, more students are able to take advantage of this applied science class. And we will have the CTE classes from Morgan. I think March 29th, they're going to come and talk to us. We know that the Morgan students have earned a lot of Microsoft certifications, and in their woodworking class, they're making ukuleles. So we may get some songs too that come out of that. I don't know. And then again, congratulations to the EHS, the Cyber Patriots, #1 in the state. And thank you again, students, for coming. And there you all are. I don't know, we sent that out to all of our parents and staff. So you are now officially famous because you're in the Your Schools Ellensburg. And we were amazing young man, Jack Eiler, who is state championship with wrestling and comes from a wrestling family, wants to continue with wrestling past high school. And there's a good photo of him. And really a thank you to Leslie. We brainstorm ideas. Leslie goes out and does some interviews, and we look at it together again. So thank you, Leslie. Just excellent job in interviewing and getting these stories together. FBLA sent us something right before we were going to put it out. So we wanted to celebrate all of these students, really have a strong FBLA program, and we're very proud of them. And then, as you know, we have our Ed Foundation fundraiser coming up this Friday. And I know, Madeline, you signed up. I'm going to be there. They gave away, I want to say $9,000 or $10,000 worth of different projects to teachers. And then we also, as you know, have the Caring Cupboard, and Mary Gordon has done a great job this year, like every year, to really reach out and meet the needs of different students as they come up through requests from our counselors. So money from the fundraiser also goes to Caring Cupboard, which goes directly to helping our students. So again, that fundraiser is this Friday. And then last but not least, Kiss Me Kate. It's our winter musical. And I know I'll be there, and maybe there's a time if we want to go on the same night and enjoy the play together, that might be a possibility. So we can kind of look at that a little bit later. But I look forward to going to the musical because our performing arts students really do an amazing job. And we have a thespian society as well at the school to help support our budding performers. So, and then I'll jump off, and Leslie, if you want to pull up the little video on Global Play Day, and this will be the end of my presentation. But both, we had a chance to observe both Ida and Mount Stewart and Valley View and Lincoln. I'm sure they participated too, but we were able to get some pictures from these two schools, and we thought it would be fun to just enjoy the different activities that happened for Global Play Day. And we know how play is really important for students. Uh-oh. So great way to end with our students, and thank you, Leslie, for putting that together. And I'll say to our students who are in the audience, we know you've had a long day. You're welcome to stay, but if you feel like you guys need to go, and we are fine with that too. So just don't feel like you have to stay. But thank you. And that's the end of my report.
Great, thank you, Ginger. Any questions, board? Okay, takes us to our student reps. You guys have some reports for us?
There we go. Is this one working? Yeah, perfect. Okay, so my report, I'm going to talk a little bit right now about the current life of seniors and activities going on. Right now is a crazy and amazing time for district seniors. As the beginning of the second semester of senior year has begun, so has the transition to the world. Those who are choosing to pursue education at a secondary level are finally receiving acceptance letters and making some of their first big life choices. Those who are entering the workforce are finding apprenticeships and mentors to help guide the way to the next chapter. But one truth is universal for all seniors. It's a time of transitioning into the future and preparing for our next step in life. Some interesting activities going on at high school right now include the wrapping up of National Honor Society Coat Drive, the Peace Club Food Drive, and the creation of multiple new clubs in the school, including Art Club. Sports have also been very active in the last couple of weeks. The girls basketball team has remained undefeated and is preparing for the CWAC district tournament. Our boys team has also had an impressive season and will be participating in the CWAC district tournament with their first game last night. Our wrestling team is also finishing their regular season and had 2 wrestlers place first place in their division. Thank you.
Hi. I would just like to start by congratulating our student body. I think it's amazing that we've had STEM kids make it to nationals. I know we've had Thespian Society kids make it to nationals, and choir and band and orchestra. And then we've also had FBLA, and those people have also made it to nationals. And I think it's amazing that our students have been able to represent on such a high level. But today I'm going to talk about solo and ensemble, which is an event that music kids get to participate in. And the band had their solo and ensemble this last weekend. And solo and ensemble is an event that band, choir, orchestra, and Thespian Society students have the opportunity to participate in. It is technically a competition, but many people just participate for the learning experience and the opportunity to have fun with their friends. Students have the opportunity to choose to learn a solo and or a group piece on their instruments and then perform it in front of their peers and a judge. The judge is normally a professional in their respective field. So if you play trumpet, you're going to be performing in front of like a professor of trumpet at the university. And then after their performance, there's about 10 minutes where they receive feedback from a judge. And during this time, they learn new skills, or the judge tells them different ways they can hone in on skills they already have. Then they receive a score, and the student who has the best score in their grouping has a chance to move on to state and then compete against everyone else in our state who won their respective regionals. At Ellensburg, there was a lot of band students that participated. We had one student make it to state on bassoon, and we had another student as first alternate on percussion. And most of us did it just to have fun with our friends, though, and it's a great way to learn, but also have fun. Some of the benefits are that there's a lot of benefits with this, obviously, but you get to push yourself and you learn how to push yourself and face your fears and how to perform under pressure. Learning to keep going, even if things aren't necessarily going well or as you want them to. A lot of times when you're performing live, a lot of mistakes can happen and it can get pretty bad, but even if you're failing, you got to keep going and push through it. The competitions, and it's a good way to learn that a competition isn't just about winning. Even if you don't win, you can still have fun with friends and grow through the experience. Learning how to prepare something within a set timeline, learning to receive feedback from experts and how to apply it. And then also just becoming a better musician in an environment where there is pressure, but lots of encouragement and a positive growth mindset. Really, there can only be failure if you allow it to cloud your perspective.
Great, thank you both. Insightful as always. Any questions, board? All right, that will take us to business. Update on capital bond project committee. I first have to say I was in my car talking as I was heading down to a wrestling competition. So I know what we were still kind of combing through a bunch of the trying to decide what was most important, what could be put off a little bit, and what was going to be on the back burner kind of a thing. I know there was a lot of discussions about certain facilities, certain things in the district. I know we put out a survey, so hopefully people went out and filled that out as best they could. I think it went to all faculty as well as the public, right?
Yeah, this was just going through the survey results because we had already surveyed
That's what it
everybody.
is,
And then it was people on the committee saying, okay, people who are on the committee, what are from those survey results? We kind of said, okay, from these, what are some ways you would prioritize? What would you consider a priority? And so I know that we put that out and we'll bring those results back to the next meeting. I think you summarized it well.
Okay. Okay, so up next is the update on the budget reduction and reallocation committee process.
Yes, so I'm going to share my screen here. So board, we had our first meeting and I just want to kind of bring you up to date on where we're at and where we want to move going forward. And let's see here. I'm not quite sure why it's not letting me advance. There we go. So this was again the overall overview of the process. And on January 17th, we had our first meeting and we established our norms and went over the process. We went over what the principles and the board priorities were. The thing that we ended with was what kind of a consensus model do we want? And we had a good discussion, I think, at the end. So I took that feedback and what I want to present to you tonight is what I'm thinking as far as moving forward, and we'll leave it open for discussion or questions. And if there's any revisions or something you want me to think about, I will do that. Otherwise, we'll just move forward with what I have. And I put together what my suggestion will be for a consensus model based on the feedback that we got that night. And then, so our next meeting with the committees will be on the 21st. The ESD budget committee will meet in a separate classroom and the student centered learning committee will be in the library. At that meeting, we will be looking at all the budget items under review and the impacts. Also on the 14th, which is actually on the next slide, this says the week of the 23rd, but actually we moved it to the 14th. Kevin Chase and Tom Fleming will be getting together with us. We've already looked through the survey data. We had about 301 different suggestions that came in, and we've started to kind of sort between so we took the principles and we've been sifting through every single idea through those 4 principles. And then as a result of sifting it, putting it on either a budget item for review or ones that we didn't think made that list based on sifting it through and considering those principles. And so on the 14th, right now, Mike and Madeline, we have you guys down for meeting with me and Kelly and Tom Fleming and Kevin Chase. And we will show you what we've done so far and get your feedback on that and make changes based on that feedback. And then as a result of that meeting, that will then determine that budget item under review list that we'll share with the committee. Both committees will get the very same list. It's just a way to kind of break down and have a little bit smaller and different kinds of discussions. And then even within those groups, we'll break into even smaller groups. People have a chance to look at the budget item under review. They'll have a chance, each person will have a chance to put in impacts. We're already going to front load some impacts, so people aren't having to start from ground zero. But if people think of others, they're able to put that in. That'll probably be about the first hour or so of the meeting. And then the second hour, we will show probably as a group, because we don't want a lot of information going out there, because there are positions that are on those as suggestions, but we'll share the list of the items that didn't make it on the budget item under review list. And people will have a chance there, if there's additional proposals along with the impacts that they see from that they want to submit, they'll have a chance to do that in that second hour in that meeting. But after that, we will cut it off, and then we'll take those additional proposals and impacts and we'll again sift it through the principals. We'll run it by everybody who is on that first committee and just say, this is, after sifting it, this is what we think. Do you have additional, input on that? And then on the 21st is when we'll bring both of the committees back together in the same room at Morgan. Or I'm sorry, on the first March meeting, and actually it's February 27th because we moved everything up because we wanted to give ourselves a little bit more time. So just as a review, we are needing to do this process because we had 2 million in ESSER this year, and we will only have 1 million of that ESSER funds for next year. We asked our stakeholders to respond to the survey. It was open from 9th. It didn't really close till about the midweek of that week of the 23rd. I just explained about the district team, what we're going to do on the 14th, what we're doing on the 21st. And then, so this just kind of reviews what I basically went over, but that way it's in writing if you want to go back through it. Again, these were the guiding principles. So this is like what we're sifting all the ideas through, right? Is we're looking at the ESD board priorities. We said it need to be sustainable for 3 years. And I just want to make sure that we're all understanding what we mean by that. And that's looking at this year plus 2 more years. So we're counting this like as a 3rd year. I think that's originally what we were thinking. It could be confusing and saying it's 2 more plus an additional, which goes beyond kind of where we're doing those budget projections for right now. So feedback as I've talked to people is, can we consider that it's this year plus 2 more and say that that's 3? And once we look at what's on the list, we will be having a board retreat. We're hoping for the end of February. We'll have a chance to talk about that span a little bit more before the meeting on the 27th. It needs to be reasonably quantifiable, which can be determined by the finance office or ESD 105 if they are able to help us out with that, and not create any significant disruptions to major functions that are required to run the organization or departments. We listed some of those as examples, or schools. And then we don't want to reduce something that could generate revenue. I also put on there that we may not consider, and we won't be considering anything that has to do with salaries, because salaries are negotiated both on an individual level as well as through collective bargaining. And there were some suggestions that came in for salaries. So we said that in the original language that we may not do that, and we're not able to do that because they're negotiated. So this is what happens on the 27th now. Just as a reminder, we'll have both committees together. We're going to try to put people in groups of 5. They will be assigned groups that we'll be looking at. So when people come in, we'll let them know where they're going to need to sit so that we can make sure we have mixed groups. We'll do as much as we can to make sure we have a community member, a parent, a teacher, an administrator, try to make sure that there's good mixed groups. And then it's in these smaller groups where that consensus process will happen. So when they're in each of the groups, they'll be given the budget item under review list, the final one. And they will be looking at it, and they will use the consensus process that I'll explain here in a minute to decide of all of those, and we'll have a protocol. We're going to expect that there's a facilitator there, and they're going to need to take them through every single item on the list so that people don't just jump to what they want. We're going to, the whole idea of consensus is building opportunities for people to be able to share their ideas and have dialogue. And so people have an opportunity to do that. And then they'll need to reach consensus within their groups of 5 on at least 2, hoping 3, but try to get at least 2 that they can come to consensus on from the budget item that we're reviewing to say, yep, we can all agree that these are 2 that we can all agree should go on the chart to say this is what we think that we could reduce. Then those will go, and you can see will go on the chart. And it says top 3, 2 or 3. And then each group will have a chance to share what's on their chart, put it on the wall. And then every individual will have a certain number of dots. And then once all the charts are up, they'll have a chance to put their dots on the items that resonate the most with them to say, yep, these are the ones that I could agree to. Then we're going to take a look at the charts and say, okay, let's say these 2 items were the ones that have the most dots on it. Give people a break. We'll rewrite those 2. Let's say there's just 2 that have the most dots. Well, we're going to rewrite them on another chart, put that up, ask people to go back to their small groups. And then within each small group, they're going to have to see if they can come to consensus on the top 2 that were indicated by the dots. So then, if we have 5 groups, 3 of the 5 groups, depending on what consensus model we agree to, would have to say, yep, we can agree and we have been able to reach consensus within our group that what was designated by the dots is something that we would be okay with moving to go on that final list that will go to the board. Okay, so that's kind of the overview, and we're trying to get to 1 million with that process. So I did a lot of research on it. Some of these ideas came from the University of Michigan and some various resources, and I'll add those to that when I go to and move this into the public piece. But this is the way we're going to define consensus. This is my proposal, putting a process in place to promote shared decision-making where every member of the group has an equal opportunity to weigh in concerning their level of buy-in for different decisions that are being made. Ideally, consensus is reached when a certain level of agreement or buy-in is demonstrated. So that's how we're going to define consensus. And we're going to use an ESD gradient of support that's similar to the one that's on here. And it was from Agile Project Management. It was adapted from there. And this is nice. That gradient model is more of a polling tool as opposed to a voting tool. Polling demonstrates where people are at and should stimulate more discussion with the goal of helping all people in the group to move more into the green area of the scale. And that really is, if we say, why are we doing this process anyway? I think the feedback that I got from you and that what I believe as well is that we have staff members and community members that really wanted to be a part of this process and at least have a voice in sharing what's important to them. So we created this process, and this, especially allowing for the dialogue in those smaller groups, gives everybody a chance to have a voice and to really share their opinions as well as what they're thinking for each of those items. So then this is kind of what ours is going to look like. And way over on the end, not in favor, but will support the process and not sabotage. And that was really an agreement that was important to us when we were doing the norms is, I may not fully agree with how things turn out, but, if I'm on the committee, I'm not going to go out and say, well, Mike said this, and then, Madeline said this, or I'm not going to go out and badmouth the process on Facebook, for example, because we all are trying to assume positive intent in this, and we're all working hard, and they're hard decisions, especially when we're talking about positions, and every position that's on the list is important and impacts kids. And so we really need people to understand that that is the expectation, is if we're on this committee, we're supporting each other because we've allowed for this dialogue and put this process in place. We're not going to get, we have about, I want to say we had maybe 30, 35 people there. You're not going to get all 35 people to fully agree, but I think we can agree that we had a process in place, and I may not agree with how everything turned out, but we had a process that was fair and that allowed people to have a voice. So this is kind of a summary. So every small group and eventually the whole group will use this decision gradient to demonstrate their level of consensus. So what happens if all committee members in a group are not moved to the green area, then how will consensus be determined? So this is what I'm planning right now to do next. Committee members will have an opportunity to choose between two different ways of determining consensus. So I'm going to put out a poll after tonight's meeting to every committee member and let us know which model of consensus would they agree to, model 1 or model 2. We'll see how those results come back and whichever model is favored more by our committee members will be the one that we use on February 27th. So model 1, and we're assuming a group of 5, it'd obviously be a different number there. Instead of 4, it might be, 5 or whatever, but, and we'll always try to ensure that we have an odd number so that we can get the same type of percentages, right? But this example is assuming a group of 5. So model 1 would be at least 4 members, or 75% of the group is in the middle of the gradient or in the green. So in other words, you've got at least 4 people kind of somewhere in here, and you might have maybe 1 person over here, right? Now, we did have some people that felt really strongly that you really needed to have most people on board to have consensus. And so with this model, they might choose this model because this model says if you don't get 75%, then you don't have consensus and you have to keep working on it until you can get people moved more into the green. Model 2 gives you 2 different choices. Same thing, trying to get 75%. But if a group gets stuck and they can't get 75, then the next step would be try to get at least 3 people that would move more into the green area. And that would be the agreement that you have consensus. And we're going to be very visual at this. We're going to have a copy of this on the table for everybody, and everyone will have a piece, a little marker. And when it comes to saying, okay, do we have consensus? We're actually going to have people put their marker, like a little game piece, on the gradient. So it's very evident to everybody in the group where each person stands. So there's no fuzziness there, which is good because I think that helps people to understand exactly where people are at. And that's where I'm saying the survey is going to be shared with committee members. I'll try to put that out tomorrow. Now, if consensus is not reached according to whichever model the group decides, our whole committee, and we only have a certain amount allotted time. And so that is a challenge, but we have to, we're going to need to be able to come to the board with that first meeting in April, which is our second week in April, with some kind of a recommendation. So we don't, have the whole year to do this. Then if they're not, if consensus is not reached, the chosen model, then if let's say a group just can't come to consensus, then we just move to the next group. So that's how the group piece will work. The overall default of the consensus model for the whole group would be like, let's say at the end, if we keep bringing 2 that were by the dots and we can't get consensus among the smaller groups, then I don't think that will happen. I think we'll have at least 2 or 3 or maybe hopefully more that we'll do, but then it's got to fall back to on me as the superintendent and working together with the district team and still considering all of the different things that have come in on the survey. But you still need a recommendation, and I'm your employee, you're one employee. So that falls on me then to work with people to bring that to you. And here's the other thing, and the board, when the recommendations come to you, it is just a recommendation. And the board, you still have flexibility, so you could choose to approve the entire recommendation from the committee. You could choose to say, you know, we like 3 of these, but these 2 we're not as sure of. Ginger, we want you to take those back and do some more research on it, or, you know, see if you can come up with a different proposal that's similar. So you do have, you know, that option with the recommendations. And that's why we're really wanting to come with some kind of recommendation to the board during that first meeting in April, so that we can maybe get some, if there's some that the board agrees to, done. But if there's still some other revisions that need to be done, then that leaves us some time to the second meeting in April, because we really, especially, you know, if it's involving a position, we definitely need to get that done in April. We can't extend that into May. So that is, that was my proposed, what I'm planning on moving forward with, and I'd love to get any feedback or questions you have. I had a chance to run it by our EEA leadership and some principals and some various folks. So, and got positive feedback on that from the people I was able to bounce it off.
And the committee is, how do I say this? The committee is just making suggestions. They're
Yes.
taking the list, they're making the suggestions. It's not something that is,
It's not mine.
they're pushing it, or they're going to say, this is how it should be. They're just making suggestions to us, the board, and correct.
It's a recommendation.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's nothing that's, it's a way, and I think it's an important way, and I'm glad that we have this. I know it's really hard, especially, you know, if there's a position or something that's on there, it's very difficult. And I'm not, there's a lot of emotion that goes with that. And I think that we have to weigh any kind of suggestion that comes. But I also think it's been really important for the community, for teachers, for paraeducators, for classified staff, you know, our pro-tech, everybody in this process has had a chance to have a voice, to have the discussion. And honestly, I think that we're going to have some suggestions on there that that are going to definitely represent where people are at, and we'll have a good temperature of what all these different groups are thinking. And so even if you were to say, well, you know, these 2 or 3 we're not sure about, you know, I've had a chance to go through, I kind of know where people are at, and I'll try to my best to try to put something together that is going to follow the 4 principles and take into consideration the feedback that we've got.
It will be interesting at our next meeting with the many different people we have on the committees, and everybody has different opinions. So it's going to be a very probably in-depth talk about like how to get to that, or not on the consensus, but how to get to consensus on those items and stuff. So.
Right. And the guidelines that I shared, that whatever model we decide on, that the committee members, that's what we're doing. And then the other thing is whatever lands on the list that's not on the list for budget items under review, we'll share that, but it's not something that's debated. It's like, nope, we filtered it. That's what's on there. If they'll have a chance to make a new proposal on that date. If they see some and spark some new ideas, they'll have a chance to do that, but we're not going to, you know, that's not going to be the purpose of the meeting on the 21st. It's going to be more looking at impacts and are there any new ideas?
So you said over 300 responses, is that right? Is that's not necessarily unique responses though, or I mean, what are we talking about as far as like when you've gone through those, what are we anticipating you giving to the committees to review, and how much time do they have to, I mean, that's a lot.
Yeah, no, there isn't 300. And actually there were, We set it up purposely just for idea generation. So it wasn't a survey that was set up of whoever, if the same idea shows up over and over again, it carries more weight. We didn't set it up that way because the whole idea was idea generation, right? So we did see some examples where, there were the same types of suggestions or comments repeated more than once. So that's why when you look at 300, it's like, oh, those are kind of the same ones that we saw up here. So what we did is we literally, hours went through meticulously and pulled out the ones. And then from there, we have them like into some different buckets to make it easier to digest. So once you see it, I think it will be doable based on what we have been able to sift so far. Not 301, I promise.
Is there time? Do these go out to the committee beforehand?
No.
So they don't get to see anything or do any reading as far as?
No, they will get to see it and we'll have 2 hours. The information's too sensitive to put out and we just can't do that. I don't think that would be a good thing to have floating around.
No, I'm just wondering about time to really form opinions as far as making sure that, that's just a lot to process.
Right. And that's to your point, why we backed it up. So if we need another meeting in March, we've got that last week in March, we can put another one in if people, Cynthia, did you have a question?
Yeah, I did, but go ahead. So 2 of the board members are in that committee, is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
But we won't see the full list. We'll just get the recommendations that come out of that process. We're not going to see the survey with the impacts.
I think that that's something that we can discuss as we start to plan our retreat in February. Is that something that we want to be able to look at there and discuss it, in a way that isn't having like the different positions and stuff that go out, because any kind of meeting like that is a public meeting. And so if there's a way to do it where we can talk about it without that, then I would like to be able to do that. But that's something that I think Mike and I need to talk about and reach out to you guys to say, what do we want to put on the retreat?
I once again want to thank you, Ginger, and all the district staff who've been working on this, because this is a very detailed process that has been thought out and iterated on. Now we're starting to see the press releases from schools that are announcing just their number, not even their process. So South Kitsap, 10.5 million, Bellevue closing 7 elementaries, Seattle looking at making a list of 100 schools that they're considering closing. We're starting to see numbers from districts, but we're not seeing process. And so I want to thank you and the staff for doing this background research and doing it. This is new for Ellensburg. This is a new way to gather feedback into, those 2-hour meetings. I'm looking at balance. We're in one of the committees together. It's really difficult, but I am thankful that this planning for this happened a long time ago, because it was very clear what was going to happen with ESSER funding running out. So thank you.
And I know of one other district on the west side that's doing the same process. So we share notes on that, which has been really helpful too.
All right. Any other questions, board? All right. That takes us on to policy. We have a couple first readings, Ginger.
So this first policy, and I'm trying to get out of this so that I can open it up. The first one is on the search, and do you mind reading that one to me? I'm trying to get out of Zoom and all that still.
Searches of students
Yes.
and student privacy.
Yep. So if you open that and you click on the red line on that, that's a policy that we already have. And what I saw in that policy is they basically, what was the detail of how to do a search was part of policy, and they're moving it into procedure instead. And then they took one paragraph and they, moved it down to the end. And I still need to run this by Neil in the safety, just to double check that they're okay with that. But it makes sense to take a procedure, because if you have to change a procedure, we wouldn't want to keep coming back to the board if, you know, every time there's a change in a procedure because it's policy. So in my mind, it makes sense to take those details, put it as a procedure, because we can adapt procedures as long as it's following a policy. So generally, you try to keep the policies a little more broad so that if you can change the procedures, you can. So I would, you know, this is a first reading and we'll bring it back for a second reading, and I'll ask Neil to take a look at that before, see if he has any concerns, but I don't really anticipate that he will.
Thank you.
And then the second policy is around infection control. And if you look at the red line on that, they just added a piece, probably because of the pandemic, about the importance of, you know, paying attention to contagious diseases. I think it says there. And so it's just an added piece. And then they even added some, it looked like some added wax that went with it as well. So I didn't really see that there was a problem with that. And we already have this policy. It was just a matter of adding that piece. I don't know if there's any discussion or questions.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, board, any questions on those? So, okay, we'll review and you'll get that to Neil, and so, thank you.
Mhm.
All right, that takes us on to board reports. Tasha, do you have a legislative report?
I do, and I think Leslie's going to bring up a PDF. So as a reminder, this is what they call one of the longer sessions. It's a 105-day session. I believe we're on day 31 of the 105-day session. So really the work is being done in committees for education bills. But this is an important session because it's a biennial budget. So you will have this in your packet. So I did take out the quotes from both sides, Republicans and Democrats, on January 17th, kind of their take about what they were seeing in education this year. So where they had a feeling of where legislatures would like to act. Across the board, we saw emphasis on special education funding, worries about inflation's impact on K-12, more wanting to uphold their promises to pay for nurses, counselors, and psychologists. So you can go through that and see. What's interesting this year, and let's see if you can scroll to the next one, is that there is very distinct shared legislative priorities that are going on. This is the graphic that is being shared by all of these groups, and we're starting to see written and spoken testimony really aligning to these 4 top priorities. Fully funding special education, free school meals for all students, adequate funding for student transportation, and recruiting and retaining talented educators. There are more than 164 bills that are still alive right now in the legislative session. The date that we're looking for is February 17th, when everything has to move out of committee. Right now, it does look as though the providing free school meals for all has moved out of the House committee and the Senate committee, and that does have bipartisan support and sponsors. The special education funding, well, there's a couple different bills for special education funding that also has moved out of committee work. The other priorities that we're seeing starting to get negotiated is Governor Inslee's budget. So in no special order, I took his highlighted points for his budget, and I'm just going to read them off. I'm not going to get into specifics. Prioritizing K-12 compensation, increased teacher residencies, expanding mentoring for beginning teachers, provide additional teacher academies, student academic and social emotional supports. And on that slide, you'll see the dollars that he has put towards that. Invest in peer-to-peer supports, student food security, equity in education, expanded mastery-based learning, climate science and outdoor education, and advanced outdoor education. The bill that not a lot of people are talking about, but the State Board of Education is really behind, is the adding a pathway for graduation for performance-based or apprenticeships. That also has bipartisan support, and the State Board of Education has been working on that for at least the last 3 years of hearing from especially rural districts who don't have a CTE pathway, that students really do need another access point to leaving schools. And tied into that is revisioning of the graduation. I'm gonna get this wrong. Student reps, can you help me? The high school and beyond plan. Thank you. Revisioning and strengthening of the high school and beyond plan so that it would be very definitive of what has to be shown and explained to 8th graders. And that documentation process would begin a little bit earlier. And then more money towards mastery-based education. That's across Republicans and Democrats trying to see how we can move more in that direction. But really, we won't really know much until February 17th. On a different note, and Ginger's going to have to help me with this, we are going to go to Olympia on Friday. So I'm excited about that. I get to meet Representative Santos and ask her questions. She is the chair of the House Education Committee. And Ginger, I'm not quite sure who's joining us, but I know that others are.
Yes, Kevin Dwight will be there with us and Cynthia Hilburn. And we'll all be in there together, leaving at probably 5 just to avoid traffic. Kevin said he gets up early and Cynthia's good with it too, so.
So board, I don't know if there's anything specific you want me looking for or reporting back on, you can let me know too.
Yeah, that's a good question. When you say mastery-based learning, how does that relate to like standards-based grading, standards-based approach to giving students feedback about their learning?
I would have to go through and read those bills. I'm trying to see, there is in Inslee's budget a significant portion at $10 million to expand that mastery-based learning initiative.
And would you say mastery-based learning is related to standards-based learning?
I would.
Okay.
But that will be a question also of Representative Santos.
Yeah.
Right. Thank you very much, Tasha. I actually don't have a board chair update tonight, so that'll take us into public comment. Leslie, can you get us set up for public comment? Thank you, Kevin. The board will allot up to 30 minutes as a total time allotted for public comment this evening, and each speaker will have up to 3 minutes of time. The board is not obligated to provide additional public comment time to accommodate everyone in attendance. The board is not obligated to respond to questions or challenges made during the public comment period, and the board's silence will not signal agreement or endorsement of any speaker's remarks. In my capacity as board president, I may terminate an individual's remarks when the allotted time has passed. I may also interrupt or terminate any speaker who is making uncivil comments. Uncivil comments include, but are not limited to, obscene comments, comments that are defamatory towards another person, or commentary that is an unwarranted invasion of privacy. The board reserves the right to have anyone removed who refuses to adhere to the rules and creates a material and substantial disruption of the meeting. Personnel matters are generally private and administrative in nature. Constructive criticism can be helpful. At the same time, the board has confidence in its staff and programs and will act to protect them from unwarranted criticism or disruptive interference. Complaints or concerns received by the board or any board member will be referred to the superintendent and will not be considered or discussed by the board in this setting. I'd ask that you respect staff members' privacy and consider putting any concerns you have in writing if they pertain to a personal matter. The board can then review and forward those to the appropriate administrator. Leslie, are we ready for public comment? Individuals in person wishing to be heard by the board need to be signed up to speak, and those on Zoom need to add their names to the document in the Zoom chat box. If you are unable to do this, individuals may also be recognized within Zoom by using the icon or emoji to show you are raising your hand for public comment. Once the board chair calls on an individual, They will identify themselves by stating their name and address for the record. Individuals will proceed to make comments within the 3-minute time limit. If an individual wants to request a response from the board, this may be possible by submitting the request in writing or emailing board@esd401.org. Leslie will begin with those attending in person.
Good evening, Kevin Dwight, 402 South Quartz Mountain Drive here in Ellensburg. First off, Board Member Coe, welcome. Thank you for your volunteerism. But to all of the board and our student representatives, thank you for that time. It is valuable and underappreciated, but so important. Lots of celebrations in the district and wonderful to hear some of those. It was neat to see the coders here tonight. It's a group of kids that sometimes don't get a lot of attention, and it was neat to see that celebration. And I think our student reps have done a wonderful job of celebrating some of the other groups, and that's really wonderful to hear. I'm the current president of the Ellensburg Education Association and have been for the last 1.5 years. I believe what I'm seeing play out in front of me is an authentic and genuine process in terms of identifying budget problems moving forward, how we're going to move past those. And it's encouraging to know that we're ahead of it, not behind it. And those conversations, I think President Rowley really said very clearly that it is nice to see that we're in front of it and we're staying in front of it. And as Board Member Woods celebrated, we've got some specific things to target. When we talk to those committee members, I'm excited to go and talk. It's going to be nice to be on the Hill again. But again, remembering that there are going to be times when we just don't agree, and there's going to be emotion moving forward in the months to come. And I just want to thank you all for your willingness to engage in public discourse and ask questions of each other that sometimes may not feel easy or may not yield answers that are favorable. But just again, continuing to emphasize that the time that you spend doing this job, this volunteer job, is a very important one because I think the coders reminded us tonight and all of the celebrations that we hear that it really is all about serving students, and that's what it comes down to. And all of these numbers that Superintendent Haber has referred to in terms of what we're able to put together for a proposal by the committee ultimately does impact students. And including those clubs that are so important outside the academic realm and developing character and work ethic and so many of the things that young group celebrated this evening. So thank you. And I look forward to see this process moving forward.
Thank you, Kevin.
If someone else is person and no one has signed up,
Okay, we'll give it about a minute, see if anybody raises their hand, and then I'll close public comment. All right, Leslie, we can close public comment. And that'll take us on to new business, proposed items for future consideration. Board. All right, that takes us into meeting closing. Ginger, do we have an executive session tonight? No, okay. Board calendar. You mentioned we need to discuss a board retreat or.
Yes, we have an opportunity. We reached out to CW and they said that we could use a room at the CERC. I looked at it, was okay. Which we appreciate. They were going to give it to us for free. The caveat is that we would need to use their catering services, but we would need to do lunch probably anyway. So I'll send that to you. The two dates they had were the 21st and the 24th. 21st, is the same night as the other meeting. So I'd rather not do it on the 21st. And not the 24th either, right? So we'll keep looking and seeing if there's some other sites, but we did ask, but that's what else was offered, so.
21st, I arrive at like 2:30, so from my flight. All right. All right, clarification and next steps.
So I do have a request. As part of the Ed Foundation, I asked Mary Gordon if she'd send me some of the details around Caring Cupboard, and she was able to send it before the board meeting started. And I just had an opportunity to look at my email. So with your permission, I'd like to use that as a clarification because I mentioned Caring Cupboard, but I didn't have a lot of details at that time. So if you're okay with that as being a clarification.
Yes.
So, Caring Cupboard began in 2014 as a way to reach out to our most vulnerable population. The mission is to help an ESD student with anything they need to be successful in school. To date, the Ed Foundation has gifted over $28,500 in items, and they've reached over 400 students. Requests come straight to Mary Gordon, and she does the shopping and makes the drop-offs at the schools. The Ed Foundation reimburses her with documentation of the request, the receipt, and a form signed at drop-off to prove delivery. Most requests come in from counselors and nurses and principals, and is completely funded from the generosity of the public who want to help our kids. She said we dedicated one Super Bowl warm up to Caring Cupboard, and we have community members who support the program monthly or annually. And items that she's gotten for, she's bought for students include like shoes, PE clothes, school supplies, toiletries, snow clothes, other kinds of personal items. 1 year, ESD Foundation bought a senior a bike so that he could get to zero period because he had no transportation. Caring Cupboard also helps many of our McKinney-Vento students with items that they need. They've supported EHS students with specific clothing needed for their new job, usually like black pants or a white shirt. And they've also helped students with expensive items that their families can't always afford, like Texas Instrument calculators at EHS, zipper binders at Morgan Middle School, and lice treatments at the elementary level, hearing aid batteries. And these items are necessary, but they're not always part of a family's budget. And so just another great reason to support the Ed Foundation and attend the Super Bowl warm-up. So that's my clarification.
Great, thank you. And Leslie, do we have any signing of official documents? Awesome. All right, that takes us to an adjournment.
I move that we adjourn.
Okay, I second.
All right, we're adjourned.
All right.
Thank you.